Welcome back to Swordman Josh Gaming, and today we are going to do a deck tech for a deck I haven't even run yet. But I wanted to get it out there in its first form before I made updates. I know this isn't optimized, but this was made out of just cards I had sitting around. I have loved playing my Soul Herder deck, but it's very oppressive for most other Pauper decks. So I wanted to build something a little lighter and more fun. So what I built was Valduk, Keeper of the Flames, as my... This one is actually a legendary creature, so you could play him as your regular commander also, but he is at uncommon level, so he could be a Pauper commander. For a red and 2, he's a 3/2 to start with, Human Shaman. The human is actually important for a couple of these things. At the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. So he ends up being a Voltron commander slash equipment and aura commander that it just ends up being a beat face deck. So let's get into what we have. I have this set up a little differently, but we will still go into 6 different portions of this deck, and we'll get to Valduk here in a second. So this deck is very creature light. It is an alternate win condition since we are beefing up so many creatures. So those would be Razor Swine is one of them. It's a first strike with Infect for a red and 2 colorless. It's just a 2/1, but since we're beefing our creatures up multiple ways, it can possibly be a win condition. Our next one is Ogre Menial. He is a red and 3. And he has Infect. He's just a 0/4, so he's got a big butt on him, but he's got a fire breathing mechanic on him where he can get +1/+0 until end of turn. So if you're attacking in and you have all your mana open, they're almost required to block this so that way your other creatures can get through. One that I found interesting was Nettle Drone. 1 red, 2 colorless for 3/1. It's devoid, so it can help block if somebody has pro red. However, we are running a lot of artifacts in this deck and a lot of equipment. So he's a pinger. You could tap him and do 1 damage to each opponent, so it can help in a multi-person Pauper game. And whenever you cast a colorless spell, untap Nettle Drone. So whenever you're casting your equipment, you can untap him multiple times and get multiple pings in with him. Our next one is from M20, Lavakin Brawler. So since Valduk makes elemental tokens, I went ahead and threw this elemental warrior in here because it's a 2/4 for 4, and when it attacks it gets +1/+0 until each of turn for each elemental you control, and it's an elemental itself, so it's going to attack in as a 3/4 plus whatever else comes in with Valduk. I did not have an Iron Mirror in my collection, so we're running Hedron Crawler. Iron Mirror would be a lot better. It's a 1/1 taps for red. Still the same casting cost. I didn't have one. I don't know why. I have all the other mirrors, but I don't have the iron. So that would be an easy one to upgrade. Grinning Ingus. Red and 2 colorless. He's a 2/2. And for a red, you can return him to your owner's hand and add red and 2 colors to your mana pool, but you can only play the ability as a sorcery. This basically just allows you to fast mana ramp and try to get some other things done. Red does not have a lot of fast mana ramp and would suffer even more at the Pauper level because you can't run the Soul Rings and all of the other fast mana that you'd like to. And last but not least is the Caterwauling Boggart. He's one of the more expensive ones. He's a Goblin Shaman for a red and 3. And the first line of text doesn't matter. Each goblin you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures, except for the fact he is a goblin. I don't see him attacking much. But the last part is each elemental you control can't be blocked except by 2 or more creatures. That is very pertinent in this deck. It's a Goblin War Drums effect, which we are running on a creature. So those are all of our creatures for this deck. We'll hit the instants next, the sorceries, the enchantments that are not auras, and then the equipment, and then we'll be done. So the first one is also fast mana. It's Battle Hymn. Red and a colorless, add red mana to your mana pool for each creature you control. Valduk will create a lot of creatures. Play this after your combat phase and then cast your spells. Good old Lightning Bolt. Can't have a red deck without Lightning Bolt. Red Elemental Blast. Pyroblast would be a good one to have in here also, but I only had Red Elemental Blast in my collection. Burning Bright, so that way all of our 3/1 trampling elementals can become 5/1s. We also do that with Path of Anger Flame, does the same exact thing. We have Rites of Initiation. Discard any number of cards at random from your hand. Creatures you control get +1/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. So hold up those mountains after you get everything cast out that you want. Discard 3, 4, 5 mountains. All of a sudden your 3/1s can be up to 10/1s and finish off games. And Weapons Surge. So target creature gets +1/+0 and gains first strike until end of turn, or you can overload it for a red and a colorless, which shouldn't be an issue. So all of your creatures will get +1/+0 and first strike until end of turn. Not really anything for double strike at the common level. To get through our deck, since we could suffer from card draw problems, we were running Wild Guess, Tormenting Voice, and there is also, I don't have these in the right order, there is Faithless Looting, Cathartic Reunion, there we go. So Wild Guess, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Tormenting Voice, discard a card, draw 2 cards. Faithless Looting, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards with flashback. Cathartic Reunion, discard 2 cards, draw 3 cards. So card draw suite. We have a couple other things that allow us to draw some cards at the common level. So along with that Lightning Bolt that we had earlier, we have a couple sorceries that are kind of the same way. We have Skewer the Critics. Shouldn't have any problems casting this for a spectacle cost. And there's Chain Lightning. So that's all of our direct damage spells in this deck, I do believe. We have Seismic Stomp, so we have a couple of cards back here that allow us to make it so our opponent's creatures can't block or part of their creatures can't block. The first one is Seismic Stomp. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. We have Ruthless Invasion, Phyrexian mana in 3. Non-artifact creatures can't block this turn. Magmatic Chasm is the same as Seismic Stomp. Creatures without flying can't block. Infernal Plunge. This is fast mana. As an additional cost to cast it, sack a creature. You'll just sacrifice one of your elementals, add 3 red to your mana pool for 1 red. Cosmotronic Wave, a red and 3 colors. It deals 1 damage to each creature your opponent controls, and then their creatures can't block. Concussive Bolt deals 4 damage to target player, but it has Metalcraft. If you control 3 or more artifacts, creatures your player that player control can't block. And Barrage of Boulders. Barrage of Boulders deals 1 damage to each creature you don't control, so it hits the entire board. And if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, creatures can't block this turn. Valduk with the equipment should be able to have that no problem. So we are running a couple of enchantments that are not in the equipment selection. One is Vessel of Volatility, again fast mana. Pay it for a red and a colorless, and then sack it for a red and a colorless to get 4 red. Impact Tremors, since we're going to have elementals entering the battle each turn, it will deal 1 damage to each opponent every single time that happens. And of course Goblin War Drums to give all of our creatures menace. Now the bulk of this is over here in the equipment and aura section, so not optimized, but the best I had. Vanguard Shield, +0, +3, so we need to make sure that Valduk survives. He's 3/2, we need to get some defense up on him. Leonin Scimitar, and you'll notice that most of these are casting cost 2 and equip or below, and equips are trying to be at 2 or 1. Most of them are 1. Leonin Scimitar, +1/+1, equip 1. Leonin Bola is, this is an interesting card because if they have a lot of creatures, you can equip the Bola, unequip the Bola, and be able to tap down some things. Kite Sail, +1/+0 and flying. Inventor's Goggles, +1/+2. So it gives them some defense. Hone Kopesh, +1/+1. Flayer Husk, this guy comes along with a creature buddy until it dies, but it gets +1/+1 if you take it off of that little 0 mana casting cost. Blazing Torch. So this one, you can sacrifice Blazing Torch to deal 2 damage to target creature or player, but equipped creature can't be blocked by zombies or vampires. Really, it's in here just because it's equipment that takes 1 to equip and 1 to cast. Bladed Bracers. This is one of them that matters, that our commander is human. So our commander will get +1/+1 and have vigilance since he's human. Nurok Hoversail, we get flying. Prying Blades, +1/+0. And whenever we damage a player, we get a treasure token so we can make more mana. Rune Stalactite gets +1/+1 in every creature type, so this will help against Pauper Lord decks, like a Merfolk deck or something like that, because we'll get that bonus also because it's for all Merfolks or all Goblins at the uncommon level. True Faith Censor, +1/+1 in Vigilance, and then again, since we are a human, we'll get an additional +1/+0, so we'll get +2/+1 and Vigilance with this one. Short Sword is just +1/+1. Shards of Broken Glass is +1/+0, and we aren't going to use this second part of it, but when equipped creature attacks, you may, the important part, it says you may put the top 2 cards of your library into the graveyard. Our auras are Epiphany Storm, so it allows us to loot, discard a card and draw a card for red and tap a creature. Cartouche of Zeal, we get a +1/+1 in haste, and we can make it so that way 1 creature can't block this turn when it comes into play. Messenger Speed is just trample and haste on an aura for 1 red. Undying Rage, there's like 3 or 4 auras at the common level that you can either return to your hand for a red, or if they go to the graveyard, they return to your hand. I don't own them. I do own this one from my Ultimate Masters opening, so it's +2/+2 and can't block, but you're going to be attacking out with him as much as possible, your commander. And whenever Undying Rage goes to the graveyard, it goes back to your hand. Betrothed in Fire, it's actually been, enchant creatures are all auras now. So you may not want to put this on Valduk, but you could put it on one of your other few creatures if you have one out. Sacrifice an untapped creature. Enchanted creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Effective if you're playing with Valduk and they block some of the elementals, you can then just sack those elementals and get more damage through with your commander. Or if you don't play it on your commander and you play it on another one of your creatures, you can sacrifice the enchanted creature and all of your creatures get +2/+0 until end of turn. So it's got some bonus in both ways. We have Dragon Mantle. So it gives our creature fire breathing, basically, but when it comes into play, it's a cantrip. It replaces itself. And Prophetic Ravings, which is just better than our other enchantment that allows us to loot. This one's just tap. There's no red mana casting cost to go with it. To make it run, we do get to run a couple of mana rocks. So Mind Stone, Prismatic Talisman, Seer's Lantern, which will allow us to scry through our deck. Non-basic lands are Smoldering Spires, can't block again. Forgotten Cave, so we can cycle it if it's later in the game. And Desert of the Fervent, so we can do the same thing. And then 35 Mountains. That's the whole deck. Hopefully it plays well. We will see later in the weekend. So if you like this, hit the like button and the bell notification so you know when I do other streaming. And as always, may Keep Calm Kitty be with you. Have everybody enjoy the rest of your week.